I think Colombia has a lot to differentiate with. Like you said, we have a history of being the best in providing narcotics and non-narcotics to the world. So it's not something I want to deny, but everyone thinks about Pablo when we talk about Colombia. And actually, we Colombians get really mad when everyone links Colombia to Pablo right away.
Yeah.
But within our industry, it's actually very useful.
Keeping Colombia at the cutting edge. Colombia has every opportunity to be a world leader in cannabis production. It has the right climate, expertise, and passionate plant advocates, like Rosa Puentes, CBO at Medellin-based Mannta. But operating internationally, navigating supply chains, THC levels, and nurturing the nation's medical market continues to be a challenge. So, welcome, Rosa Puentes, CBO, Chief Business Officer of Mannta, based in Medellin, Colombia. If you could just introduce yourself. By the way, for everyone, I'm Dave. This is my colleague, Jamie. And hello, sorry.
Hi.
How you doing? Good stuff. So, yeah, it's all about you today, Rosa. And we're going to be talking about the cannabis sector in Colombia today. So, take it away. Tell us all about yourself and the work you're doing.
Thank you. My name is Rosa. I'm CBO for Mannta. Well, it's really exciting to be within the industry. I love it, actually. We are into cannabis cultivation. We are a specialized organic company within the industry. We are very much into high quality, and we like it very much. We just want to bring wellness to the world through cannabis. I guess everyone is here to do that.
Absolutely. And I think when we sort of spoke before, we were talking about the idea that Colombia has every opportunity to kind of be this world leader in cannabis production, the right climate expertise and passionate plant advocates like yourself. But what are some of the challenges that you're facing in Colombia right now?
Yeah. Well, within the country, we have a lot of challenges since the uses of cannabis within the country that are allowed are only medicinal and in the form or the presentation of magistral formulations. So it has to be prescribed by a physician. It has to be like a formula specifically done for yourself. It has to be dispensed by a magistral formulation pharmacy or company. So it's very limited. It's very specific. And the other segment that has been allowed to, I guess, to do some commerce is the cosmetic segment, but nothing more. Like, we've been very much limited into what we can sell or can't sell. Actually, we are not allowed to sell the flowers to the public within our country. So that's a very high limitant for companies like us. And we are what we can do is just to sell the flowers to extraction companies here within the country, or a huge development that just changed this year. Before this year, we couldn't export flower. So we were even more limited to the boundaries of our country. But now we can actually export the flowers for extraction purposes or as a finished product. And also, it has been made legal to include CBD into edibles, beverages, and dietary supplements. The thing is that it has been made legal, but the sanitary institution in Colombia that has to publish the rules into how you can actually start selling a product, how you have to register it, those rules haven't been published. And we have a lot of prejudice, taboo, I don't know how to say it. Also a lot of ignorance around CBD and how it works. So it's been very hard to break through that ignorance, even within the sanitary institutions. So it's been like a little bit of gossip around that. They don't really know if they are going to allow CBD within edibles and beverages. I guess maybe within dietary supplements. but that has made that has limited a lot of the local industry to just be able to uh, just sell different products. It's not like in the US that I know the rules are within the states, but you can do almost anything, gummies and all kinds of edibles and all kinds of even very like weird products for us, like patches, skin patches and stuff, super weird stuff. And we are very much limited. And now we have to go and just face the international markets that are flooded with flour. So we are just looking around. I think Colombia has a lot to differentiate with. Like you said, we have a history of being the best in providing narcotics and non-narcotics to the world. So
there is a legacy. We can talk about that, because I think that's a very interesting point, actually.
Exactly. There's a legacy. And I think, it's not something I want to deny, but everyone thinks about Pablo when we talk about Colombia. And actually, we Colombians get really mad when everyone links Colombia to Pablo right away.
Yeah.
But within our industry, it's actually very useful because, it's like a
weird, I know what you mean, because I remember going to cannabis in Spain, and they're branding like soil nutrients, Narcos, like the TV show. It's like it just seemed like the weirdest thing to do. But again, I guess it's a brand.
It's a brand, and I know it. I think there's a really gray limit, a gray line there, but I think we do have to take advantage because we've been known really to having the best quality and bringing the best products to the world. And that's because, there's like a geographic position, the climate conditions.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to cultivate from so many years. So really, I have to take advantage of our, I don't know if it's a bad point, but we are famous for that, and we have to take advantage of it. And I think the world needs to change this whole mentality of trying to have this engineered cannabis and consume this highly engineered cannabis to being more natural. And here all the conditions are so amazing that it just naturally grows from the soil. You don't have to do much.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot there. I think you mentioned, and a couple of things I wanted to pick up on. I mean, it's that kind of idea that, first of all, you have a medical market. I mean, it sounds like, oddly, that there's similarities with what's happening here in the UK as well. In the, there's medical cannabis. I think we're one of the biggest exporters of cannabis in the world, and here in the UK, oddly. But everything that's grown here can't be distributed here. So we have to import it from abroad, which seems crazy. And then there's a lot of hemp products and things like that can be used, and certain parts of the plant can't be used to make things like, CBD oil, as I understand it, which again could be a really big, cash crop for a lot of farmers. And, it's things like that make me think, well, when you talk about somewhere like Colombia, where you've got the right climate for growing, it just kind of grows out of the ground. I mean, I've got a friend who lives in Cali, and he sort of said, well, it just grows. You just sort of show a seed to the ground, and within a few days you've got a plant that's sort of sprung up. And you think, well, again, how are you kind of navigating the sort of international market? Because you talked about, you're exporting now, is that right? And I know that there's challenges around if you're exporting, well, you said you're exporting flour. Is that CBD flour or THC or kind of both? And there are certain limits, aren't there, as well?
Yeah, well, the limit within Colombia, it's 1% THC. That is super high comparing to Europe or the US. So within Colombia, we can move freely all the flowers that are under that THC limit, but for extraction, it can't be sold to the end consumer. But right now what we have, it's really hard to navigate the international markets because you have to pay attention to each country's regulation, each country's THC limit. Like within Colombia, it's just 1%, but let's say the US, it's 0.3%. Most of Europe, it's 0.2%. Also customs sometimes are not very much aware of the rules, of the limits on how to test. So it's been hard. Right now we are aiming for the US and for Europe. In Switzerland, it's a very interesting market because they have the same THC limit as us, but all markets are flooded of CBD flower. All markets are very much like very, very flooded of these kinds of flowers. So right now we are trying to look into the THC market. We have here in Colombia, you can have different licenses. You can have licenses to produce seeds and sell seeds. You can have psychoactive crop site or non-psychoactive crop site, and also to fabricate and extract oils. We have all of them. But right now we are only focused on the flower side and crop side of the chain, production chain. And yes, we are aiming to those countries or to those continents, and it's been hard. You have to pay attention to the regulation, and of course, it's a very scary world because you are dealing with a product that can be considered a drug in a country. So you have to be really careful and not to commit any crime.
So how do you manage to navigate that? I mean, if you're exporting, THC flower or into the US or something, can you just not do that at the moment? Is that the issue?
Yeah, well, right now what we're doing is we have certain strains that are under the 0.3% THC limit in the US, and that can be done like that. You can import into the US, but you also face like certain customs borders and problems that are there because they test the flower once you get there.
Right.
And it has to be an FDA approved lab, and there are a lot of requisites there. And if your flower test is above 0.3%, then you get like a red notice. It's not a red notice, but it's like you get into this blacklist.
Right.
And they are going to just to look into all your shipments from that moment on.
It's like making a small mistake in your tax form or something, and then it's kind of like, we're going to watch them, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Even though it might be an honest mistake, or there's something that is easy to overlook.
Know what we've come to know, there are differences between lab tests and lab reports, and we've known that even within labs here in Colombia, the reports are different. So if you have the bad luck of just having a really bad test taken in the US, like here it could be 0.25% of THC, and then there could test more than 0.3, and then we're screwed. I mean, it would be terrible. And I think after the second time that they find THC above the 0.3, you can be like stopped from importing ever again.
And that that can completely just destroy your business there. Absolutely nuts. So I mean, but if you're exporting flower, I mean, how do you grow some? I guess it's like you say, it's certain strains that. But is there a way of kind of ensuring? Is there something you do? Is there a process to ensure that they're kept under a certain level, like you say in Switzerland? And I think this is happening in the UK. We're petitioning the UK government to, the CIC through Maple Tree Labs, who are, we're actually helping with some content. They're doing 10 recommendations to government saying, it should be just 1% THC, because that just feels like a kind of almost like a global standard that a lot of countries are either implementing or moving towards. But I mean, how can you control, or can you not? Is it, you just have to sort of say, okay, well, in the past, this strain was below 0.25%. So we'll just keep growing that and hoping that the whole thing is. Yeah, exactly.
What we've been doing is just keep growing that specific strain and just looking into its development after each harvest, just looking if it continues to have that same THC level, and just making an analysis on what might have been different this time, this harvest that modified the THC level. But we've been trying to standardize, but we grow naturally. We have a greenhouse. It's not outdoors completely. We are within a greenhouse. But either way, those are not like the temperature is natural, the luminosity is natural. We control all the the water we put into the crop site, but nothing else. So it's really hard to control it. We're just trying to see how it develops and if we are able to standardize it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a really difficult thing to do, isn't it? Because potentially you could grow you could go through an entire crop cycle, and then if it tests above, if you basically you blow a bad result, then you end up losing an entire crop, and then potentially you can't even sell it within Colombia. So you're left with a crop you can't do anything with.
Within the US, but fortunately, there are other countries that allow a higher percentage of THC, so it's not completely lost, and we can always extract it here within Colombia and just make it an oil and sell it. We have actually a lot of allies, thank God, like good companies, good people that are within the extraction services. And we just came together to help each other. I have the flower, you have the extraction services. Just let's help each other and bring the world like THC free products, because those are even like easier to move around the world. So that's what we're also doing.
No, it's a good pivot, and it's a good way to work with other industry partners to make the business viable, essentially, and work not around the regulations, but within them, and in a way that is safe for the business. It was really interesting when you mentioned that, Colombia has a reputation outside of Colombia as a place of narcotics. What's the feeling within Colombia toward cannabis specifically? I know you mentioned in government. I think it's probably the same everywhere, where it's very slow to take up kind of more modern views or more liberal thinking. But what's the kind of feeling within the kind of mainstream kind of population within Colombia about cannabis?
Well, there are two sides of it, because within the government, actually, everything is very slow. But when you compare it to other kinds of laws that have gone into action, the cannabis industry has gone by really fast. Like, they have paid a lot of attention to us. Only this year, like 2 different legislations came out allowing us to export the flower and for the edibles and everything. It's been actually really fast comparing to the normal speed of the government. So that has been okay. Of course, we need much more help, much more liberalization, I guess, of what we can sell or not. But the government has been paying attention, I guess, also because there are a lot of people that invested into the cannabis industry, foreigners and locals. So it's been like a point of attention for the government, because we don't want this to go into bankruptcy. So they have paid attention a lot. And for the rest of I guess the common people, just, this is not something you talk about with freely. There's so much prejudice. There's so much taboo around it. It's been funny because I'm already very open to the whole cannabis industry and talking about it. And I went to a comedy show, and they just asked who consumes or who is into the cannabis industry. And I would just put my hand up, and all the rest of the people were looking to me oh my God, there's so much prejudice still and taboo around it. It was even hard for my family to understand that I was within the cannabis industry. My mom is 70 years old and my dad also. And for them, this was illegal most of their life. Actually, their whole life. So for them, it's oh my God, you became a dealer. And I'm no, wait. I'm not.
How did you get into the sector? How did you get into cannabis? How did it become a career for you?
Actually, it was by chance, because I used to work in the healthcare industry, but in the imaging diagnosis industry. That it's amazing, it's beautiful. But I wanted to change a little bit. I had already worked there for 10 years and I was just a little bit tired. And by chance, a family member told me, this company is looking for a chief business officer, and why don't you apply? And I said, okay, let's do it. And I applied without having any hope, actually, because, this is very much new and I didn't know much. Actually, I didn't know anything about cannabis.
Even from your healthcare experience, there wasn't sort of talking about it from a wellness perspective, or there was a kind of
nothing.
Wow.
This was completely new to Colombia also, and to me. So I got into this company, and of course, the first few months were just reading and understanding, and also it actually broke a lot of prejudice that I had myself. It was incredible because I didn't know anything about cannabis. So I didn't know about the components, the different cannabinoids, how they interact with the body, that we have a cannabinoid system. I think oh my God, I'm a Catholic and God made us with a cannabinoid system. So it's what? We are prepared to consume this.
We're ready to accept it into the body. Absolutely.
Exactly. So imagine my surprise, and even though, and I started taking it in drops for insomnia. So, and it works perfectly. It's amazing. I also give it to my dog. Because she suffers from a lot of anxiety when we go into the car, and it works perfectly. It's amazing, actually. And it's a life-changing experience to go within the industry. It's amazing to understand better, to leave all the ignorance behind, to educate myself, also to educate my mom. My mom is now okay, medicinal cannabis. Of course, she limits herself to the world.
Mm-hmm.
To the word medicinal,
yes.
Because they don't they're not open enough to understand the recreational world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even though that she's just talking about it, and that she says that medicinal cannabis works, and that it's nice, and that I work there, and that it's cool.
It's very good.
It changes everything. Yeah.
I mean, roughly, I don't know if you know, and to put you on the spot, do you know how many medical cannabis patients there are in Colombia?
There's a huge company that it's called Chiron.
Okay.
Here in Colombia, and they have an app called Dr. Serenia. This is not paid propaganda.
No, not at all.
But actually, they have an app here that everything can be virtual or face to face. And they have said that they have in their reports that they have more than 10,000 patients, and that they have prescribed so many and so many to come. So there's a huge market there. And they also, what I've come to know recently is that the healthcare system is paying for cannabis treatments. Certain companies, certain treatments, but they are paying. So this has come widely.
Because we have here in the UK, we have a public healthcare, but it's not available there, or it is, but it has to be prescribed by specialists. Was it 2 specialists, Jamie, or something? Or one has to, in order for a normal doctor to prescribe it, they have to get the approval of a specialist or senior doctor.
It's 2 other doctors, and 2 other doctors have to sign off the prescription that they're writing.
Yeah, I've heard, and that makes it just so much more difficult. Here, it's just a general practitioner. It has to be. It doesn't have to be a specialist. So they have this whole group of very young doctors that are prescribing cannabis, and it's fine. No problem with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I think, isn't it 3? Sorry, is it 3 patients or something here that have got public healthcare funded cannabis?
Yeah, I think it's 3 on the NHS, and then total is 16,000 patients. So it's actually kind of quite similar to Colombia, really, because there's about 50 million people in Colombia, and if you've got 10,000 patients, we've got a slightly bigger population and slightly more patients. But it just goes to show how much the kind of, I suppose, legislation and the stigma gets in the way, doesn't it, of of people getting access to the medicine that they'd be able to use.
Yeah, we are 50 million. We are 50 million, but it's mainly concentrated on big cities. Because of course we have internet services and everything, because it's virtual, or they have their clinics here also. But yeah, they continue to grow a lot. Another change in the regulation is that, well, before they couldn't have stock of those magistral formulations. I think right now they are able to sell the magistral formulations in like drugstores. But I haven't seen them gone into action. I guess the commercial side is developing because maybe they weren't ready to do that kind of sales. But right now I think it's legal to do that, to have like some kind of stock in drugstores and to be able, with the prescription of a doctor, to sell it in drugstores.
And that would be kind of like THC medicinal cannabis.
Yeah.
Because we have lots of CBD products that you can get in like a drugstore here, we have like pharmacies, they call them that, like, where you can buy everything from like aspirin to like, toothpaste, and then they have CBD. So I think the perception here, just to kind of compare it, which is kind of interesting, is that, you'll start to see more CBD patches or things like, for pain relief or joint. And I think more and more people are making the connection that CBD is the part of cannabis that doesn't get you high. So therefore it's kind of like, that's the kind of almost acceptable aspect.
It's the guilt-free version, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Cannabis light.
Cannabis diet cannabis.
That's exactly what I had to actually explain my family. Don't worry, CBD, because of course I have my droppers here in my house, and they're like, oh my God, but this gets you high. And I'm like, no, this is CBD and it has no THC, so don't worry. And you have to make that difference for some of the biggest prejudice and taboo that it's out there. You have to make the difference. And also, I think there hasn't been a lot of education into how THC is also super useful into treating certain illnesses and diseases.
Absolutely. And I think that's, again, when you talk about, countries like, well, both of ours, we've got large populations, but such a small number of medical cannabis patients. It's a case of, well, what needs to change? I mean, I think here in the UK, when we talk to like the CIC and I think the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Council, they're doing a lot of work to educate doctors and say, actually, this is what, and it's, we went to one of those events and it really is very cannabis 101. And these are like, highly educated doctors, but they just don't know anything about it. And that's not to say this is a simplified version. It's just the knowledge isn't there. It's not part of what they've been taught. And that's like, how do you change that? Well, you literally have to take a roadshow and go around the UK inviting doctors to come and find out about cannabis. And
really educating people, I guess it's like the most groundbreaking thing we can do right now, because people don't understand anything. And for us, that would be so important, also because we are into the organic. Mannta is into the organic cultivation, cannabis cultivation. But here in Colombia, since we can't sell the flower directly to the consumer, there's a whole illegal market still on the streets. Yeah. So we really need to educate people into that cultivation. It's important. Like, you're not taking heavy metals, really harmful pesticides into your body. And right now we are deciding to give that to the people. So just because of the prejudice, just because the recreational side of it has so much taboo around it, but we are deciding to let people consume maybe harmful products that are around the streets. So it's like it's weird, but yeah, that would be a huge change for us here in Colombia. Although there are a lot of people that aren't, that wouldn't like the recreational side to be legal. But I think I think it's just wasting time. Yeah. Finally, eventually it's gonna be legal. And I think it's the best healthcare policy, just to be able to sell good products to everyone, and certified products and products that are well cultivated, that are organic, and also that are from legal companies. We pay taxes, we pay like social security for all the employees. We have a staff of amazing like agricultural staff, and they don't let us sell our amazing products to the people.
And that's it. But it's okay. Well, it's not okay. But again, without that infrastructure, you're essentially still putting money in the hands of, well, one of a better term, gangsters, and they're going to sell bad quality stuff. I mean, it's one of the biggest arguments for legalization from a recreational perspective, in that people are going to find it anyway. They're going to sell it anyway. They're going to consume it anyway. And you may as well give them a high quality product, and the government can claim taxes from that, and, businesses can prosper.
Exactly.
100% with you. Yeah.
And people don't even know what they are consuming, because, of course, the illegal dealer doesn't tell you like, oh, this has 20% THC and I don't know how much CBD, and it has been tested and it's pesticide free and heavy metal free. And they don't tell you that. They just give you what they have, and people are used to that, just consuming whatever the dealer gave you. And if it goes well, perfect, I'm gonna ask him for more. But if not, then what do? You have to change dealer, or you have to tell them, and would they care? No. So it's hard.
No, absolutely. But I mean, do you feel like attitudes are changing? I mean, in other parts of Latin America too, because obviously, is it Uruguay? I mean, I know it's a world away from Colombia, but I mean, do you feel attitudes are changing generally? I mean, across Latin America. I mean, Mexico
definitely
is changing, and Peru, and what do you see sort of happening widely? I mean, we have one perception of what's happening in Europe, and again, Europe feels as fractured as maybe the United States does. It's okay here, but not here, or you can do this here, but not that next door, and So how are things shaping up in Latin America generally?
Well, the regulations are very, very different within each country. It's some countries aren't allowed to even cultivate. Brazil doesn't allow to cultivate. I think Argentina is completely controlled by the government. Peru, just the first license for cultivation was granted. Ecuador is beginning also to cultivate, but they are just beginning. Like they are behind a few years from Colombia, but it's evolving. What I think I think there was a report where they talked about the domino effect, and the domino effect is unstoppable. It's like one country began, Uruguay began, Canada began, and then it's just starting to spread. And I'm within the industry, so I usually talk with people within the industry, and it's amazing to see their openness and to see how they talk about it, and how they want to develop all kinds of products. But of course, there's the limiting side, that it's the government and the regulation, and you see so many limitants like that they don't let you do stuff. And those are most of the countries in Latin America. The regulation is the most limiting part of it. What we can't do mostly are medicinal uses for cannabis. Most of the countries only allow the medicinal uses here in Latin America. And they even restrict the medicinal use and how it can be accessed. Like you said, it has to be from a specialist, or it can be from a general practitioner, or not. Like here in Colombia, I think it's able, we are very much free into that. But I think in Brazil, to get a THC product, it's impossible. You can't. Right. It has to be like a terminal case, a terminal disease. So the regulation is the biggest limitant, or else I think people would be opening very much fast to cannabis, and to considering it, and also to consuming it. And also, if you don't see the products, and if you can't reach them, it's really hard to change your mind around it.
It's kind of like, that's the you need to be able to be visible with it in order to change perceptions. But when you have a kind of illicit market, it's hard to do without sort of being the person who stands out and gets potentially penalized for doing that. But it's but I think culturally it feels again, maybe it's because you're in this, operating in the sector and you deal with people. And same here. It's like, I didn't quite realize how open lots of people were about it. But now talking to friends and talking to things, people don't really have a problem with it to the extent that I thought. And that's kind of, and I think, that's just, my perception. But again, looking at sort of research and things like that, there are, people are open to it. And I think, again, legalization would just be a complete, it would be a real money spinner for so many different countries at a time when the economy could really use, or different economies could really use a big boost into,
and Colombia is mainly a cultivation site. Like that's our biggest sector. And it would be great to be able to take advantage of that in this worldwide industry. So I think there are a lot of things we can do just to make it better and to just tear down the taboo around it. But it's hard, on the marketing side also. You can't mention cannabis. You cannot stimulate the use of cannabis. You cannot do anything. Your Instagram accounts are closed. You are also on risk of other accounts to be closed. LinkedIn, your webpage. What can we do? What can we do to be able to sell our products? It's super hard. Super, super hard.
Absolutely.
But again, interesting that tech companies usually are agile and quick to respond, and they seem the slowest to kind of get with the fact that locally in lots of countries there are legal markets, whether they're medicinal or recreational, and enabling people to actually, message on a variety of channels shouldn't really be very difficult. The people who are usually guilty of being slow are the government, but in this case I think government's reacting remarkably quickly, and social media is doing a really bad job for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not able to say the word cannabis. I'm not able to mostly the word cannabis, and it's really hard because they don't understand that cannabis is like the whole genre. And I should be able to say the word. But of course, there's also a lot of fear into just not being a criminal or not doing something illegal and crossing a line. So sometimes you can understand, but sometimes it's just like any other product, alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco, they can do some kind of publicity and we are not allowed. So it's hard.
But I think again that presents opportunities to kind of be creative with the things that you can do, and I think that's where the real kind of there are ways, and it's about navigating that. And I think impetus and people driving it forward like yourself always find a way, and I think that's part of the challenge. There.
You just have to find the other words and just be creative, into how to show the product or what not to show. And just be out there somehow to make contact with the people. I think the important part is to be able to make contact with people and make people be interested, and people just reading about cannabis and understanding and educating themselves. I guess that's the most important part because it's so useful. Here, when I talk to my friends within my generation, they are very open about it. But when you talk with maybe older generations, mostly our parents, that's hard, that's difficult, and they have a lot of taboo around it. But I think it's being more open now, the conversation, definitely. And since people know that I work within the industry, they are even more open about talking about it with me. And it feels amazing. Like I have no problem about it. And they ask me like, what are the uses, what can I use it for, and what kind of products are out there. And people even ask me if I can sell them, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I can't sell the flowers. I would be a very happy legal dealer if the government let me, but I can't.
What do you see happening in terms of the change that you want to happen that will really help your business over the next couple of years? What do you think you would like to happen, and what do you think will happen?
Well, I think the biggest change that would be the most helpful would be just to free a little bit up the local market, to be able to have within our boundaries like a wider just to be able to sell the flower to the people would be amazing. If they want to restrict it to a medicinal side, okay, but even within that segment, the medicinal segment, it would be great if we could sell the flower, but it's not even possible right now. So that would be great also. And internationally, I guess it's just a matter, I guess we talked about it, Dave, about having the same THC levels, having clear rules into customs, into how we can go in different countries without having the risk or the fear of committing a crime. Just being able to standardize those I guess those categories or requisites would be a life-changing and an industry-changing event, because it's hard to navigate the regulations, the different regulations, and the requisites, like the quality requisites, if you have to have GMP, if you have to have GACP, and if it has to be from the European Union GMP, or, oh my God, those are so difficult to navigate, because also it takes a lot of investment to have an EU GMP certificate. Mm-hmm. So it's not easy for us Latin American companies, I guess.
So it's kind of, I mean, there's so much that is changing and so much that will change. And I think that it'll be very interesting to sort of see, again, everyone's sort of waiting with bated breath to sort of see what happens when Germany becomes, because I guess, in terms of when we look across at Europe, will that start the domino effect that we all hope it would? And with that, I mean, if that happens, then it obviously presents more opportunities for companies like Mannta to be able to then sort of say, well, if we can sell to Germany, then all the other countries are sort of waking up. It's, but it just takes that one to sort of kickstart stuff. So I guess we'll see. But
hopefully.
And federal legalization in the US, I mean, that again would be
great, just to navigate those many states, those many regulations, what you can't do, the products you can't sell in one state, but on the other one you can. That's super hard to navigate that regulation.
It's kind of in some states, I think even CBD is still illegal, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's almost like the closer you get to the center of the United States, the more restrictive it kind of becomes. Like the West Coast and East Coast, that's kind of easy going, and you get to that. And it's like, but no, I mean, this has been a great conversation. So thank you so much for your time. Any final points or anything else you'd like to say about Colombia, about Latin America and the cannabis sector and what you hope will happen in the future?
Yeah, well, I really hope that both the medicinal, recreational, wellness sectors or segments are freed up. I think it's inevitable. It's unstoppable. And it also leaves away this whole prejudice and taboo towards cannabis that it shouldn't be there. I guess it's just a matter of being careful and having the precautions, but allowing the industry to develop with those cautions would be amazing. And well, Mannta is there just to provide organic cannabis to the world. We are very much into high quality, and we love what we do, and we love the perspective of being this kind of a way of life. This is not only a medicinal side or a recreational side. There are many people that use it on their daily life just because of their anxiety, some things that aren't even that hard to deal with, but it's just part of their daily life. Cannabis is part of their daily life, and it's like a way of living. So, when the prejudice.
No, absolutely. It's just about normalizing it and hoping to, keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like, you're doing the best you can with the cards you've got at the moment. But, things are changing. So good luck with it all. And thank you very much for joining us again.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right.
Hope to see you again. Bye.
Bye-bye.